In 2009, the Uber taxi service was established in San Francisco. It has an online ordering system for convenience. The brand has a simple, modern Uber logo that shows how friendly and easy to use the company is. It also shows where the company is going. We'll see a general overview of the Uber brand and its investors, as well as a detailed outline of the changes it has undergone over the years. Uber is a transportation service that allows customers to order, phone, and book taxis or private automobiles with drivers. The app that provides online services bears the same name. Garrett Camp and Travis Kalanick started the business in California's San Francisco. Furthermore, this is a very new service that has been in operation since 2009. But even though Uber is a new service, its logo has been changed several times, giving it a nice, easy-to-use interface and a look that fits its business. Its goal is to show the ability to track an ordered car with a driver. Until now, though, the logo was a compound word, Ubercab. Between 2009 and 2010, the Uber brand was originally known as Ubercab, which was reflected in its logo. At the bottom was dark writing with only lowercase letters. A stylized UC monogram in burgundy appeared above it. Furthermore, U and C had the same shape and only differed in space orientation. Except for the A, which had a little triangular protrusion at the bottom, all of the glyphs were bold and unserifed. In 2010, the strong connection between the service and the route is shown by the first version, which is in the shape of a capital letter and has the name of the company in the text. To accomplish this, the designers created a semi-ring highway sign with the word Uber in lowercase above it. It designates the sequence's beginning and finishing positions. Furthermore, the creators beat the logo style by blending two capital letters into one. To accomplish so, they specifically used the name Ubercab, taking the letters U and C from it. Designers left the first symbol alone while turning the second 90 degrees. The end result is a unique transportation service sign. In 2011, an improved version based on verbal form was released. The corporate name is written in uppercase in a thin, smooth typeface with no sans serif. The only variation between the letters and the classic design is a small curved ledge at the top of the U sign and on the lower leg of the R. The word cab has been entirely removed from the name. In 2016, the owners of the service decided to change the Uber logo. They chose a smooth font with no serifs or points. All of the letters are capitalized, and the focus is on the beveled E slices. The current logo is an extended version of the word Uber, which was released in 2018. Except for the first, all characters are now lowercase. Because the font is strong, black letters stand out against a white background. Meanwhile, the most serious moment in the emblem's history occurred between 2011 and 2012, when a radical overhaul was conducted. Even though the new version didn't look like the old one, it still had things to do with vehicles and roads. The letter U with its top ends bent inward served as its visual focus. The icon was positioned within a rectangle. The name spelling has also altered. The U now appeared strange and distinct from the one in the visual symbol. The left end was lengthened and twisted out by the developers. All other characters were rendered normal and smooth, and the serifs were erased. Silver white and grayish blue were the prominent colors. A year later, the owners of the service also changed how the mobile app and desktop site looked. The passenger sign is circular, whereas the driver's sign is hexagonal. Labels are placed in a square form to distinguish them on the map. Color palettes and patterns differ by country. For example, the Chinese version is mostly red, while the Indian version is mostly turquoise. In the United States, Uber users see a dark turquoise logo. Over time, the font of the company's symbol has changed, going from big, lowercase letters to small, capital letters. U, R, in one variation with curved ends, and E, which had oblique side parts, were distinguishing elements. The Uber logo palette is very large because the design team gave 65 color options for use in different places. As a result, each country has a distinct style. So, instead of the classic corporate color scheme of black, white, and blue, there are now many different options available around the world. Standard icons are made up of white and two shades of blue, or they symbolize a combination of white, brown, and orange, which is one of the reasons why the logo is popular. However, let's take a glance at some of the other factors that have contributed to the popularity of the logo. Uber's business model has always relied heavily on design. The design of the company's app and website needs to be immaculate in order for them to be successful. To that end, the Uber logo has had a significant impact on the design of the company. It is used as the app's thumbnail and can be seen all over the app and website. While the most recent Uber logo is still relatively new, the corporation is already heavily investing in it. They even published an instructional film that explains some of the significance of their new logo. "We leave no bit or atom untouched to develop industries that serve people, not the other way around," Uber states in its video. The new Uber logo will definitely be a big part of the company's branding and marketing, which is why Uber has worked so hard to make sure that the design fits with the company's message and goals. In conclusion, Uber is a firm with a multifaceted mission and message. Part of their problem is communicating that objective and message to their clients, and one of the instruments they use to do so is the design of their logo. It will be interesting to see what Uber can do in the next few years and how it continues to use its logo and eye for appealing, meaningful design to move the company forward. Now that we know all about the logo, let's take a deep dive into the history of the brand itself. Garrett Camp and Travis Kalanick created Uber under the moniker Ubercab in 2009. Camp had recently spent $800 hiring a private car to take him and his friends on New Year's Eve, and he was looking for a method to make the service more accessible to the average person. Camp thought that letting many people split the cost of the service would make it cheaper, so he started Ubercab. In 2010, a man named Ryan Graves responded to Travis Kalanick's tweet and became the first Ubercab employee. He was promoted to general manager and granted between 5 and 10% of the company. Soon after, he was made CEO of the corporation. The company's name was abbreviated to Uber in 2011, and in 2012, Uber launched UberX, a service that allowed people to work for Uber while driving their own cars. Since then, Uber has been at the forefront of many new transportation services and technologies, like self-driving cars, carpooling services, and even helicopter services. Uber now operates in 300 cities on 6 continents and made $20 billion in revenue in 2016. Surprisingly, Uber lost $2.8 billion on that revenue in 2016. This shows that the company wants to keep pushing the limits and developing new services and technologies that will change the transportation business. Even in areas where Uber does not yet exist, the company is well known. Uber is already renowned throughout the world, thanks in part to how it disrupted the transportation business and in part to brilliant marketing, and it will be intriguing to watch what the firm can do in the future given its worldwide popularity and commitment to expansion. One thing that helped Uber get to where it is now in terms of popularity and success was the logo, which is easy to remember. Uber's narrative began in 2008 in Paris. Travis Kalanick and Garrett Camp were attending Le Web, an annual digital conference described by The Economist as where revolutionaries congregate to map the future. Both men sold their co-founded firms for substantial sums in 2007. Red Swoosh was sold to Akamai Technologies for $19 million, while StumbleUpon was sold to eBay for $75 million. When the two couldn't find a cab one cold night at the conference, they came up with the idea for Uber. Uber was founded on a single concept: what if you could request a trip from your phone? Initially, the concept was for a timeshare limo service that could be requested using an app. Following the summit, the entrepreneurs split off. When Camp returned to San Francisco, he was still obsessed with the idea and purchased the domain name ubercab.com. Camp was still the CEO of StumbleUpon in 2009, but he started working on a prototype for Ubercab as a side project. By the summer of that year, Camp had convinced Kalanick to join Ubercab as its chief incubator. The service was tested in New York in early 2010 with only 3 cars before it started in San Francisco in May. Ryan Graves, Uber's general manager and a key participant in the company's early stages, was named CEO in early 2010. In December 2010, Kalanick was named CEO, while Graves was named general manager and senior vice president of global operations. The app's growing popularity was propelled by the ease and simplicity of ordering a car. A ride could be ordered with the touch of a button, a GPS recognized the position, and the cost was automatically charged to the user's card. The San Francisco-based firm soon rose to prominence and expanded rapidly. In 2010, someone asked for their first Uber ride. Less than 2 years later, in 2011, Uber went international in Paris, where the idea for it first came up. But what did its first 5 years look like? After launching its inaugural round in 2010, the company got its first significant funding, a $1.25 million round led by First Round Capital. Uber's growth accelerated in 2011. Early in the year, Benchmark led a Series A capital round that brought in $11 million. The company then grew to include New York, Seattle, Boston, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and Paris. At the LoWeb conference in December 2011, Kalanick stated that Uber had raised $37 million in Series B funding from Menlo Ventures, Jeff Bezos, and Goldman Sachs. In 2012, the company added UberEats, which was a cheaper hybrid car service that could be used instead of a black car service. After its investment rounds in July 2015, Uber became the most valuable startup in the world, valued at $51 billion. Then, in June 2016, Uber got $3.5 billion more from Saudi Arabia's National Wealth Fund. Many controversies arose as a result of Uber's rapid growth. Uber revealed its financials to Bloomberg for the first time in April 2017, reporting a global loss of $3.8 billion in 2016. Losses from its China business, which it sold in the summer of 2016, were included. Without them, net adjusted losses were $2.8 billion. The firm's worth had been reduced from a high of $68 billion to $48 billion by the following year. In 2018, Japanese conglomerate SoftBank Group, together with a group of investors led by Dragoner Investment Group, successfully bid for 20% of Uber's equity at this lower price, representing a 30% drop from the previous valuation figure. The deal reportedly granted SoftBank a 15% stake in the ride-hailing company, while Uber gained a powerful ally in Asia who might help Uber turn the tide following a string of public failures. The remaining shares were reportedly distributed to other group investors. Other obstacles occurred during this time period, including the deadly crash of an Uber self-driving vehicle. Also, on August 8, 2018, the New York City Council voted to stop giving ride-hailing services like Uber and Lyft new licenses. Besides these, there were also some other high-profile examples of Uber's problems. The first was the price hike backlash. Uber utilizes an automatic pricing algorithm based on market supply and demand. Prices surged to as much as 7 times the usual rates on New Year's Eve 2011, triggering unfavorable consumer feedback. Surge pricing sparked anger once more in December 2013, following a snowfall in New York. Uber recently agreed to cap surge pricing during numerous blizzards in New York City. Taxi drivers in London, Berlin, Paris, and Madrid organized a massive protest against Uber in 2014. Taxi operators have alleged that Uber fosters unfair competition because it avoids paying hefty license costs and skirts municipal restrictions. In November 2016, Europe's highest court heard the case. In September 2017, Uber lost its permission to operate in London, where it had 40,000 registered drivers. A London judge overturned the prohibition on June 26, 2018, thereby enabling Uber to operate under a 15-month license with constraints. Uber was awarded a fresh license to operate in London in September 2020. The current license is good for 18 months, and Uber has to send in regular safety reports to keep it. The second was the issue of fair pay and benefits for drivers. In New York, it was revealed that Uber had charged drivers commissions based on pre-tax earnings rather than after-tax earnings, costing New York drivers tens of millions of dollars. The company said it was a problem with their accounting and promised to pay all of their drivers as soon as possible. The problem does raise concerns about the fairness of who pays the taxes. For some time, driver advocacy groups have alleged that Uber is evading a tax at the expense of its drivers, which the New York Times uncovered evidence to support. According to the publication, it might have cost drivers hundreds of millions of dollars. On June 13, 2017, a New York judge determined that, in some situations, Uber drivers should be deemed employees rather than independent contractors. This move allows drivers to get employee benefits, which will almost certainly have a big influence on the bottom line. Later, the New York City Council put limits on the number of licenses that could be given out. This hurt Uber and stopped any new permits for the ride-sharing service in the city for a year. Meanwhile, in November 2020, California voters approved Proposition 22, which allows companies like Uber to designate their employees as independent contractors in the gig economy rather than full-time employees. With over $200 million spent on campaigning, the Uber-backed ballot proposal is officially the most expensive in California history. On August 20, 2021, Alameda County Superior Court Judge Frank Rush ruled that two parts of Proposition 22 were against the law and that the whole law was unenforceable. It remains in place, though, while its supporters appeal his decision. The third was the settlement of discrimination, harassment, and hostile work environment claims. In 2018, Uber paid $7 million to more than 480 current and former employees to settle a complaint from 2017 about gender discrimination, harassment, and a hostile work environment. According to the lawsuit, Uber had an unfair rating system that put women and people of color at a disadvantage. Then there was the discrimination against a visually impaired customer. In April 2021, an arbitrator ordered Uber to pay $1.1 million to Lisa Irving, a blind passenger. The arbitrator decided that Irving was treated unfairly by Uber drivers because they turned down her trips or insulted her over a dozen times. Uber said that because the drivers worked for themselves, it was not responsible for what they did. On the other hand, there have also been a couple of acquisitions over the years that could also be translated as wins, some of which include the credit card, UberEats, and Uberpool acquisitions. UberEats is a merchant delivery program for food deliveries. Uber previously offered a service called Uberpool, which allowed drivers to pick up numerous clients on a single booked route, making it a less expensive choice than UberX and Uber Black. But because of the COVID-19 epidemic, the service has been temporarily stopped in many places, such as the United States and Canada. Uber has been testing a new ride-sharing service called Pool Chance throughout Africa. According to Uber, this service is comparable to, but not identical to, Uberpool. In 2017, the company and Barclays worked together to make a rewards credit card for people in the United States. Secondly, there is Lime. On July 9, 2018, Uber announced a partnership with Alphabet Incorporated, SGV, to invest in Lime, an electric scooter rental firm, GOOG. Lime's light scooters can be rented in a number of big cities, and people are encouraged to leave them on the sidewalk for the next rider. This makes for a convenient business model that uses clean energy. The transaction is part of a $335 million financing round, and the company is worth $1.1 billion. Uber promotes Lime in its app and also offers a separate Lime app that clients may use to find a scooter. Uber did similar things with the bike share startup Jump before buying it for an estimated $200 million in April 2018. Another high-profile purchase occurred in July 2020, when Uber announced an all-stock acquisition of food delivery firm Postmates for $2.65 billion. As the food delivery company grew, UberEats was bought and formed as a strategic move to make up for losses in the company's ride-sharing business, which had been struggling, especially during the pandemic. Uber's stock reached an all-time high following the Postmates acquisition. And then there are the Uber self-driving vehicles. Uber, like Google, Apple Incorporated, AAPL, and Tesla Incorporated, TSLA, is a leader in the future of driverless cars. However, the journey has been rough, beginning in 2018 with Alphabet Incorporated's Waymo suing Uber for stealing its self-driving technology. In March 2018, one of Uber's self-driving cars fatally killed a pedestrian, forcing the company to temporarily halt all testing. Uber said in May 2018 that it would discontinue its Arizona testing program and relocate. Uber's self-driving cars returned to Pittsburgh in July 2018, but business was slow. Uber announced in December 2020 that it would sell its autonomous vehicle business to Aurora, a San Francisco-based startup founded by Waymo's former head engineer. At the time of the sale, Uber had invested more than $1 billion in the company. Meanwhile, Uber became successful because traditional taxis and other automobile services were unable to satisfy some extremely specific needs. As the company's website says, these three requirements include being able to request from anywhere, ride in style and comfort, and pay without any trouble. A couple of investors across the globe have also contributed to the success of the company. Silicon Valley millionaires, world-famous entrepreneurs, and Uber veterans are among the greatest investors in the ride-hailing business Uber, which filed for an IPO today. In the 10 years since its inception, Uber has found support from some of the world's most powerful investors, many of whom have deep pockets. SoftBank owns the majority of the company's stock. Last year, it put $9.3 billion from its Vision Fund into the company. Alphabet, the parent company of Google, and Garrett Camp's startup firm Expa1 are also stockholders. Benchmark Capital Partners is an American venture capital firm that got its start by investing in eBay in 1999. In January of last year, it sold $900 million worth of Uber stock to buyers like SoftBank. Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, the country's sovereign wealth fund, has also invested in Uber, investing $3.5 billion by wire transfer in June 2016, then the highest payment ever made in one lump sum. It is still the largest foreign government investment in a venture-backed firm. Among Uber's shareholders, veteran Silicon Valley investor Matt Kohler stands out, but that's only because he's the named director for Benchmark Capital's 11% stake. Kohler was a Benchmark general partner and one of the first Facebook employees. He is one of the younger members of Uber's board, with ages ranging from 35 to 70. Ronald Sugar, the board's chairman, is the senior member. In conclusion, Uber is one of the world's most carefully followed firms, having formerly been the world's most valuable startup and changing the current ride-sharing and transportation industry as we know it. Despite the fact that the COVID-19 pandemic has thrown a wrench in Uber's plans to become profitable, resulting in large losses in its ride-hailing business, the company's strategic investments in its food delivery arm UberEats, as well as its recent California Proposition 22 victory, bode well for the company. The Uber logo and brand have grown to be major players in the transportation and technology industries.